And finally, one of the main last rivals I'm going to get to before my notable mentions is going to be the Brooklyn Nets. And boy, oh boy, this is a complicated situation with these Nets. I tell you that. First of all, I'm going to say this. Kevin Durant is by far the best player in the league, in my opinion. But in New York City, Julius Randle gets more love than Kevin Durant. There is no doubt about it.
I just realized you the fucking king of New York.
Now, before I get to the roster constructions, I'm going to say this about the New... I was about to say the New Jersey Nets. I should call them that. I'm going to say this about the Brooklyn Nets. They're sitting in a king's position from a roster standpoint, but also at the same time, they're sitting in a position of scarcity. It's very weird. And only Kyrie and KD can find themselves in this situation. But this team is. First of all, KD is invested into this team as he signed an extension with the Nets. But James Harden could opt out at any moment. And at the same time, with this Kyrie situation, it draws a lot of eyes on James Harden as the pressure on him kind of mounts up. See, James Harden was kind of sitting quiet, just being kind of the ride-along guy. But now all of a sudden with Kyrie out of the picture, it's like, yo, you better help Kevin Durant get to this promised land. And meanwhile, at the same time, Giannis does not even have the pressure of winning a ring since he already won one. So Giannis can actually operate more free this season, almost at a position where he has nothing to lose while going up against the Nets. See, James Harden has never even reacted well to pressure. So now he has to deal with Giannis, which is already a player that does not even agree with James Harden. They kind of have beef. But Giannis is at the unique position where he could go up against these guys with not a care in the world, which is dangerous for them. It's almost like when KD and James Harden go up against Giannis and Chris Middleton, Giannis and Middleton will be almost playing like a team that has nothing to lose, but yet they're the champions. This is a very weird dynamic that the Nets are in. And at the same time, the Nets are heavily invested into this team because they'll be repeat yearly offenders of going over the luxury tax, which is already another penalty on top of it. So not only did they double down by signing James Harden onto this team and going deeper into the luxury tax, meanwhile, while not being able to sell any tickets for the 2020 season, now they're going to be a repeat tax offender, which is already another penalty by the league. The percentages go up every year you go over the tax. If you go over the tax 3 out of 4 years. So the Nets are definitely in line for that. So they're going to be paying those penalties. And at the same time, they're already in year 3 of this whole Kevin Durant, Kyrie kind of movement to Brooklyn. And yet they see nothing pay out. There's no dividend payments. There's no championship appearances. There's nothing. So this shit has to start paying back and working because they're spending too much money on this, especially going through a pandemic. And now James Harden, he thought he was going to be along for the ride along, but now he's going to be, the New York media is going to be looking at his ass like crazy, saying, hey, James, what are you doing? Where were you on this last second play? You can't hide around like last year, blaming it on a hamstring injury. Is this yet another playoff disappearance, James? See, once the media starts kind of formulating these things around James Harden, we got to see how he's going to react to that pressure. And based off the way he reacted in Houston when it came to playoff pressure or just last minute crunch time pressure, the shit wasn't good. And James Harden has not formally yet been introduced to the New York media. Let's make no mistake about it. He's been hiding behind Durant and Kyrie. And now with Kyrie gone, there's going to be more spotlight focused on him. Now this brings me back to the Knicks versus the Nets this season. And it's more than just looking at the rosters. Oh yeah, the Nets got Harden, they got Durant. You have to understand this Kyrie situation throws a monkey wrench into this whole thing because the Nets are a very top heavy team. I mean, their team right now looks like the fucking old man Avengers, where they got to get LaMarcus Aldridge and Paul Millsap. I didn't even know Paul Millsap was still in the league. So at center, this team is very weak, and that's going to be their very weak point. So Mitch Robinson should be feasting on this team. They have nobody to really guard the paint, but those two kind of bulky old power forwards. And if this Kyrie situation continues to play on like how it is now all season long, James Harden will begin to feel that media pressure. critiquing his every performance. And that's going to start weighing in on this guy because he has a track history of this. And best believe there's a reason why he didn't sign his extension yet. So he can still opt out. And the New York media will begin picking at him. Hey, are you going to extend with the Nets? Are you going to extend with the Nets? What about your performances in crunch time? Why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? That's why I said this season is more than just looking at the roster with the Nets, especially going up against the Knicks. You got to look at a lot of other factors, especially internally with this team, which is supposed to be a very top-heavy team, and their ownership has paid out a lot of money, especially through the pandemic, not selling any tickets, and they're not seeing any return on investment. Giannis already got his ring, so when Giannis goes up against Brooklyn, there's no real pressure on him to beat this team because no matter how he's judged, he's already a champion. So he has nothing to lose going up against the Nets, which is very dangerous, number one. And the Knicks, in a way, will be playing the Nets in a similar situation as the Bucks. Of course, we're not the defending champions, but we're free to do us. The Nets are going to get critiqued in a way because for the amount of money they spent and for the things that, especially the New York media, assumed that the Nets would be the talk of the town, they got to start seeing results. And once again, with the Brooklyn Nets, I believe their weak point, especially if things don't go right, will be James Harden, and it will be attacking the middle of that paint with LaMarcus Aldridge and Paul Millsap. Like, this team is looking like the Avengers. Patty Mills. You see, these signings weren't bad until Kyrie, that situation with him came about. That's going to cause a major issue, and especially due to the fact that they can't replace Kyrie this season. So once again, the Nets are operating from a king's position roster-wise, but at the same time, they're kind of operating from a place of scarcity, especially when they're trying to buy guarantees like an NBA Finals championship, which owners like Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, they understood that that's not possible, especially in a city like New York, where the energy is one of one, the fan base is one of one. Everyone's seen that energy, how it looks like, how it feels when they saw game one between the Hawks and Knicks last season in the playoffs. It can't be duplicated. It can't be purchased or sold. It's truly one of one.